Well, as Ghana's Muslim community celebrates Eid, the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, has assured Ghanaians of bearable economic conditions amid high food and fuel prices. Speaking to commemorate the Eid al-Fitr celebration at the Black Star Square, Dr. Bawumia stated that government continues to work and ensure the cost of living is bearable.
The pandemic severely drew the economy back from the massive progress the government had achieved between 2017 and 2019. This setback, without doubt, made life more difficult for citizens and government, as prices of goods soared across the world due to the abnormal increase of the cost of international freight. As if that was not enough, another setback in the form of the sudden global effects of the Russia-Ukraine war hit us at the beginning of this year, when our economy showed signs of bouncing back from the shackles of COVID-19. In spite of the unexpected destructive global factors which have severely hit our economy in the past 2 years, our government has not reneged on its development commitments to the people of Ghana in the area of education, healthcare, and infrastructure development, amongst others.
And that's the Vice President there. Meanwhile, Joy Business has been gauging the Eid mood at the market centers as traders cash in on delicacies for the celebration. Here's a report by my colleague Beverly Brom.
We are here at the Nima market and our mission is simple. We want to find out the foodstuffs that our Muslim brothers and sisters use and how much they cost.
Ana we near 2 cedi. Ana we near 7 cedi.
It's a share.
Dates.
You say ebi wo ho dry, ebi so I say ani bi na wo ho bisa no.
Sa obi ani de ope.
Okay.
International nasu every sa other country na we mu dia wo no every Niger.
Okay.
There up to every say Saudi Arabia. Into Obiani de Pento Obiasini ni price.
Okay, Tian Shefa Ebiana Chairman.
We say 30 cedi. And we say back we 10 cedi, 2 near 20 cedi. Any sugar sinwe.
Okay.
International bread back 25. When I look and half. And near 12 cedi 50 pesos.
Please, what's this?
His name is Alele.
Alele.
That is these cake beans.
So how much is it? You can be selling once that's okay.
It's a 10 series. This is a 10 series one. This one is 10 series.
Okay.
And this is 7 series.
7 series.
Yeah.
Does it only come during Ramadan season?
Yeah, you know this thing, I used to buy it in Ramadan more than after Ramadan. So,
but why do you buy it more in the Ramadan season?
You know, this is the Ramadan food, special.
Why? What makes it special? When?
The special things about this thing. Some people used to take it on with rice, and this kafa and cocoa.
Pastor, then I'm going.
Family man, now the chimasa. Etriadian no. I feel nature. The kid one so only the bia.
Beverly Brown with that report there. Let's now turn our attention to the 1.5% e-levy. The Commissioner General of the GRA, Reverend Dr. Mishada Owusu-Amoah, has stated that about 4.5 billion cedis will be raked in terms of revenue from the e-levy by the end of this year. He's been speaking to George Riafi also about the system and exemptions for all taxpayers.
Implementing the the e-levy will ensure that the integrity of the data and the security of the data is not compromised in any way.
So this also came at a cost, right? Is it a cost that is going to be borne by the GRA?
In collecting of taxes, the Revenue Administration Act again gives the Ghana Revenue Authority to be able to do up to 3% as a retention from the collection of taxes to be able to for the expenditure towards the collection of the tax. Do you understand that? Okay. So for every expenditure that we will incur, because there's no way you can collect tax without incurring expenditure. Whether your software is developed by you or not, you have to buy servers. You have to, if you buy any off-the-shelf software, you have to pay annual maintenance cost for the software. You have to get people fit on the streets, and all this is cost. Now, the Revenue Administration Act grants unto Ghana Revenue Authority up to 3% of the tax collected for the purposes of administering the tax. And therefore, in collecting the e-levy, Ghana Revenue Authority will be working within that 3% that is granted to Ghana Revenue Authority. As we start this expenditure, even though no revenue has come in now for what do you call it, e-levy, but because we know you collect tax and we know that there is under 3% for us for the tax collection, up to 3%, and when I say up to 3%, it is for the Minister for Finance at any point in time to determine the exact percentage, and therefore our expenditure must always be within that 3%. And for whatever expenditure that we incur, as far as e-levy is concerned, we will stay within that up to 3% that's allocated to GRA.
Some months have already gone already, and we understood that even the ministry has revised their target as well. In taking off with respect to this levy, what's the clear target are you looking at mobilizing before the end of the year?
Yeah, if you recall, at the inception last year when the budget was read, the targets, the expectation was that we'll be able to collect about 6.9 billion. And because 3 months have gone already, and we are starting in the 5th month, and then also in terms of the other ramifications, we have looked at the figures, and these figures have been revised downwards for the remaining part of the year. And currently, the expectation is that the e-levy should be able to bring in about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis by the end of the year. If you look at it for the from May up to December, then it means that we are looking at roughly something between 400 and 500 million per month. Because if you are looking at 8 months and you are doing, let's say, 500 million Ghana cedis per month, 5 times 8, what do you call it? Because we have for 4 months it's gone already. 5 times 8 will give you about 4 billion. Okay, so that is basically what I'm saying. So this is between 400 and 500 million Ghana cedis per month is what is expected. It's not spread out evenly across them, because definitely when you know that when you are starting, it will be some gaps in the initial stages, and then we expect that it will grow. Again, there has been this lot of talk about the fact that people will start reducing their, and I have engaged some of the countries that people have cited as examples, and I know a specific country that have one-on-one discussion, and they affirm that you saw a quick decline in the initial stages, but then it didn't even take 2 months for you to see the increase. Because sometimes what happens is that people, human beings are generally sometimes rational, even though not always rational. And when it comes to money, there's a lot of rational behavior. And what happens is that, let's say, for example, you are transferring money to somebody in, let's say, Odoko, and you are stationed at your station, in Kokomlemle. And so you have to pay, let's say, 1.5% of, say, 100 cedis. So that's 1 cedi, 50 pesos. And then the other question is, you can decide that, okay, let me take transport and travel to Odoko to go and deliver the money to the person. Time, because you are going to spend about an hour or 2 hours or even more. That's, and then we say time is money. 2, you're going to pay the trotro or the taxi driver or the what do you call the young or what do you call the
Bolt, Uber
driver to be able to get to Odoko. 3, the risk of the travel to Odoko and back. And so these are things that people will take into consideration and make a decision as to whether they have to transfer it, wire it, or they have to.
I mean, CJ, the authority has done or worked with several tax types and all the rest. I mean, there are some who are saying that or still questioning that 4.5 billion target, that it was not and wouldn't be achievable.
I think that a lot went into the calculations of the tax. Generally, there are various tax types that we have, and before we come out with any estimates, we look at the various variables that are in place at a particular time and look at what these variables and what are the possible movements in terms of these variables. And I think that to a large extent, we believe that these are feasible targets we have set for ourselves based upon the various variables that we have taken into consideration.
CJ, I was trying to talk about how prepared the authorities, the public. There are still concerns about double taxation, and help me out on that, because that's also a concern out there.
I think that we must understand the issue about trying to bring all of us to contribute a little to be able to help develop our dear country. And that has been one of the underlying reasons for the e-levy. And it's important for us to understand that when with the e-levy, everybody in in any corner will be able to contribute a little. And then when it comes to the issue about double taxation, you will find out that for us in Ghana, we have even gone ahead to introduce some elements that have not been done in other countries who have introduced similar electronic money transaction levies. For example, the one innovative thing that has been introduced is the fact that when you transfer the money to a merchant that is registered for income tax or VAT,
as a business,
you the one who is transferring, you are exempted from the tax. And so in doing that, what you are trying to do is that merchant who is paying the VAT and paying the income tax can attract those who are also transferring to do more business with him. So we are giving him more business. Then at the same time, we are telling the one who is not registered for VAT. So for example, your plumber, your electrical contractor who is not registered for VAT, when you transfer your money to him for 2,000 to go and fix the wires, you pay e-levy if he is not registered for VAT or income tax. So you have to advise him that if you want me to transfer money to you and I don't want to pay the 1.5%, please go and register with Ghana Revenue Authority.
Yeah.
Then on the other hand, the one who is registered already also gets. So we try to eliminate that. And number 2, for those who are also tested, for example, I transfer money to some people as a merchant or as an organization, and then I end up paying the e-levy. The e-levy is also an expenditure that's allowable, so it's going to become part of your expenditure in your P&L. So at the end of the day, when you finish doing your accounts, your profits will be lower than it should have been because of the expense that you have made on the e-levy. So when we are calculating your profit income tax on your bottom line, again, you have benefited from there. So these are things that people must understand. But there definitely will be some points where it will appear, for example, if I transfer to my son, and my son also transfer, then the argument is that I have paid. And then my son, maybe he's a student, he has also paid. For those small situations, it is something that the aim is for us, all of us, to contribute a lot.
So
maybe for just a joke, if you see that sometimes we also pay tithes. When I pay tithes to my son, and my son also pay tithes.
That is not a conversation. But just in 30 seconds on that one, so if I get from you, from the stakeholder perspective and from GRA as well, you are ready to implement this tax for me one?
Yeah, as I said, the system is ready. Now, the important thing for us is for all the EMIs or the charging entities to ensure that they configure or ensure that they have their APIs to be able to talk to the APIs of our system. And as I said at the beginning, I want to use this opportunity to admonish that they all must ensure these people are available. You know, when it comes to projects like this, sometimes it takes very long hours of dedicated work and commitment to be sure that you get. So we want to encourage them that the people are available to ensure that whatever help they need to be able to get their systems plugged in to ensure that it can be done before the 1st of May.
Recently, there were some amendments judging from budgets and all in terms of the taxes. That has come with a different way of implementing these taxes for businesses. And some are complaining about the reassessment that you've done and the taxes are hitting them so hard. What do you see about it? Because judging from the current environment, COVID, and some are still yet to get on their feet. Some were pleading that could GRA had delayed or pushed the Ministry of Finance to hold on with some of these amendments.
I'm glad you talk about this. And we're also not talking only about e-levy, because sometimes people also think that all that we are saying is e-levy, but e-levy is only one other aspect. But we are looking at all the other aspects. And you see, as a government, you realize that the government is doing both sides in terms of trying to find ways of cushioning. So even though we are talking about some of the areas that seems to bite on people as far as the tax is concerned, there are also areas, for example, the waiver of interest and penalties, which have been extended to June of 2022, when it was already ending. So people should also know that the government is a listening government, and also trying to, or GRA for that matter, is also trying to see ways of cushioning them. Not only that, the vehicle income tax that was suspended in 2021 have also been extended as well. Now coming to the other ones that have also changed, if you take the things like the withholding tax on the gold exports, again that has also been reduced from the 3% that was previously being charged to 1.5% at the moment. So this was also part of the new policies that came out. And then when you come to the threshold for the VAT, now you know that we're looking previously up to a threshold of 200, and now we have moved it up to what do you call it, 500. And then some people will argue that because they are now in the bracket, but you see, when you go into those brackets, you also have the opportunity to also get the input tax. So at the end of the day, you also benefit compared to those who are doing the 3% flat rate on the based upon the turnover limit. Now, in terms of people who are complaining that we have come to audit them and their turnover has gone up, it's not an intention or intentional thing to increase.
They woke up with a letter from GRA and everything has gone up substantially.
No, the reality is that sometimes people's turnover go up, and then when the turnover goes up, they are supposed to pay more tax based upon that turnover. And once you do a tax, tax payment is not easy for anybody. And therefore, when the turnover goes up and you're supposed to now move into a higher bracket or take pay, then the guys, they start complaining. But like I said, these ones exist for us to also mobilize more revenue. But again, we still have other incentives. For example, you know about the income tax brackets, which have also been changed. And they also have been changed so that the lower people who were previously paying will also now be exempted. And even for those of us who are also higher, depending upon your bracket how you fall in, you see that there's a slight reduction in the tax that you pay. So we have to do both sides. if you go to the extent of just making sure that you do say everything, I think they will not get the revenue.
But Commissioner, some business concern here is that they feel that it's the same businesses out there who are being heaped on these tax. These businesses are tax compliant, but there are still a lot of enterprises out there that they are not paying taxes. And they expect that some of these reliefs should be granted to them. So it's the same businesses out there, they are paying taxes always, and a lot of things are being heaped on them.
It's not necessarily the case. These people, those who are very compliant, and they also take opportunity to file their taxes, there are also reliefs that comes to them. And also sometimes, and I have seen in my tenure here, I have seen a number of firms where even sometimes doing the audit, you end up finding that in his provisional assessment and the tax that he has paid, he has actually overpaid. And I've seen checks being issued or accounts being credited with tax overpayment or refunds. And so it's important for people to understand that when you file tax, you don't file tax only for you to be able to pay more. Sometimes in your filing, you rather gain. For example, if you talk about the reliefs on like you and I, if you have never filed your tax, you don't indicate that your parents are alive, and therefore you're supposed to get relief for your parents who are alive. You don't indicate that you have 3 children. So, for example, if I am blessed and then I have my 2 parents alive, and then for another person I don't have the premium, but because of that I'm paying for their upkeep. The law says that because I'm paying for those 2 parents who are alive, I must get a relief.
Okay.
And they will only know if I file.
I see.
But people will not file.
We've passed Q1 already. How's revenue doing?
I think that you will expect within the budget, there was also portions allocated for e-levy and some other. But generally, there is a substantial improvement. If you look at the first quarter of 2022, we have done about 25% year-on-year increase. And you remember that last year we did 25.6% year-on-year increase, which was the highest year-on-year increase. And therefore we have done 25% year-on-year increase. That is between the first quarter and the last quarter. So we see that there is, and actually it's also picking up from the first month to the second month to the third month. And therefore we see that we'll be able to come very close to our target. Again, I will not want to start commenting on this at this moment. I want us to wait and get closer. And then when you get closer and we meet again, then we can talk about it.
There was a recent levy or tax on, is it the online tax that affected commerce and all those things? That one, and then also the tax on rent and all the rest, how are they doing?
I think that's also very important. People have said that we are concentrating just on e-levy. It's important that you are bringing this one out, that we are doing there are a number of initiatives. And so as I speak now, more than 100 non-resident online entities have registered on our new online platform. And this is just, we are not even done a month yet. We know we started at the beginning of April, and we have over 100 companies registered. And so we expect that we are going to see an increase in that. We've also done about 200 customers, taxpayers, who have also registered on the e-VAT. And then we also started piloting on the e-VAT. So once it also goes successfully, we hope that we'll be able to move away from the current manual VAT that we are doing. As far as the property rate and the rent tax is concerned, the various structures have been put in place, and we expect to take off as the minister announced at the end of this month. And so for property, both rate and rent, and for e-VAT, e-commerce, e-gaming, they are all taken off in terms of the registration. And therefore, and you remember in the last statement that the Minister of Finance issued, he mentioned that at the end of the month, they all take off.
So April, May 1 is also taken off.
Yes.
And you are ready, the systems are in place, everything is in place?
Yes, systems are in place. And as I said, for example, over 100 people have already registered on the e-commerce platform. the e-VAT, over 200 taxpayers are registered during the pilot. And so these are things that are going on quite smoothly for.
We're going to have more on the e-levy at 5 p.m. on Business Live with Guta President. I'm Charles Aite. Many thanks for watching.